And we're live. All right. Good afternoon, ETHDenver. I guess it's afternoon, just barely. I am Dean Tribble I am CEO of Agoric, which is a layer 1 Cosmos-based L1 that with integrated IBC, inter-blockchain communication protocol, for building smart contracts in JavaScript. The idea is, of course, to be able to enable the millions of developers out there in Web 2 land and beyond to build smart contracts. And it's not just JavaScript, which is a language, it's the power of JavaScript, which is a framework. So a framework for being able to easily mint and trade and build interesting components and abstractions for doing smart contract, for doing DeFi, for doing NFTs. And in this case, as it turns out, the ability to do that in an async world is incredibly powerful and timely. So let's talk a little bit about that and then how we achieve that. So roll-ups, layer 2s, Celestias and dimensions and sagas and all these things that enable quick creation of chainlets and applets and all these things have succeeded, right? App chains have succeeded. There are lots of them out there, thousands of them literally, with their own tokens, and we have created this network of connected assets and services. So we've succeeded at that to the tune of $2.2 trillion in liquidity across these systems. Right? And that's really powerful, and that creates the multi-chain world and the multi-chain problem, right? What do people have, right? They've got fragmented liquidity as a result of this. They've got an overabundance of choices, where a user coming in that wants to do something simple, and you go, well, which ecosystem would you like? Which of these 100 options of chains would you like to subscribe to? How many accounts do you want on there in order to do portfolio management across that perp chain and that AMM chain? And the answer is, they go away and do Web 2 instead. So we've got an overabundance of choices, and if they do try and do something, I've got US dollars and I want staked TIA over there, they've got to manually shepherd their assets through multiple bridges and conversions in order to accomplish even very simple cross-chain use cases. Right? What they want is seamless access to multi-chain liquidity. Fragmented liquidity, not their problem. They want to be able to have some of their assets on Ethereum, some of their assets in Solana, some of them in Cosmos, etc., and not care about the difference any more than when you order a hamburger with an application on the phone, you don't care which cloud system the application is running in, you just want your hamburger delivered, right? So they want a uniform entry point. I'm not going to go, oh, should this be Solana? It's like, I'm going to go to an app, the equivalent of Robinhood or the equivalent of one of these Web 2 things, and I'm going to start doing my thing. And if you can't deliver assets and value from all these different chains, then that app is not going to appeal to the broad range of users out there. And they want that simple user experience. They want to click on a button and get a hamburger delivered to their doorstep, figuratively. They want to click on a button, take their dollars, get staked TIA, get staked Osmo, get a loan to go out and buy something or double down, or be able to pull cash out and go buy a car, right? So the solution to that, right, the vision that people want is chain abstraction, right? We don't want the chaos of many entry points. Users don't want that. What they want is a vision that's now broadly being called chain abstraction, which is this seamless access to digital assets and digital services across Web 3. But to build that is hard. You need the ability to orchestrate the activity of all those things, to shepherd assets from one chain to another in some way. There are many solutions that people are trying to tackle this, but most of them are off-chain, right? I've got a effectively cloud-based Web 2 service that's going to sell my asset over here, hopefully not rug pull my asset and go deposit it over there. That's not great. We built Web 3 for a reason. We want the integrity of execution of running those kinds of behaviors on-chain. And that's what orchestration is, the ability to program all these asynchronous assets. And how do you do that? Well, in the mainstream world, JavaScript is the orchestration language of the internet, right? It controls trillions of dollars every day. That's what people know how to build with. And so orchestration is that set of capabilities to be able to coordinate these assets and services across these chains. So how do we accomplish this? In JavaScript, right, what you do is, okay, we've got blocks across the bottom. most blockchains, everything happens in a single block. You got 5 seconds, or depending on the chain, 20 seconds, or a half hour, whatever it is, but you've got this tiny little segment in order to get something done. Anything you're doing cross-chain does not fit in a block because you got to go off-chain. Anything you're doing to cooperate or do activity across multiple services doesn't work in a block. You've got to go off-chain. You've got to be spread across blocks. And so an Agoric smart contract is a long-lived process running that can do async await. And we'll talk a little bit more about that, where it can send a message to a DEX over on Osmosis using IBC in order to trigger a transaction and wait for the response and react to the response in very simple, normal, familiar programming styles to then issue a message over to Ume to trade with it, or to build a vault in interprotocol, or to go across Axelar over to Aave, or whatever it is, in order to trigger a transaction, and then finally maybe send it over to ETH to go buy something, or to go put it in Uniswap, or whatever it is. Right? That ability to have a long-lived program that a normal developer would understand, and that in the next generation of smart contracts, a normal developer had better be able to build, that's what we bring to the table. Right? So, oops, went the wrong way. So what's that look like? This is a developer event, so I got to show you code. Let's just set up some things. Looks kind of familiar, right? I want to transfer $1,000 that I have on Ethereum. I want to go buy TIA, Celestia's token, and stake it. That's what I want to do, and I want to do that on chain. I want a service that does that for me, so I push button and magic happens. I do one signature and multiple chain actions happen, right? So in JavaScript, I get the chain object that gives me all the services available from Agoric that are reachable on Celestia. I create an account, so now I have a new account controlled by this smart contract, uniquely here for this user. Oops. And now I'm going to do what's called, Cosmos happens to have a onion routing mechanism where you can say, okay, start a transaction that goes to that chain, and then that chain, and then that chain. It's hard to program normally. Here, I can just do it in one place. I write it all up. I say, I want something that will swap on Osmosis TIA for US dollars for TIA, and then send it on to my TIA account, my account on Celestia, right? Pretty straightforward. We don't need to go into the details here, but millions of programmers would trivially understand that. And then I say, okay, Noble, my account on Noble, which is the native USDC deployment for Circle in the Cosmos ecosystem, where I sent money over Ethereum and said, go put it on Noble, and then something better happen with it, right? Well, this thing will then pick up my money and send it through those hops. So it's going to take my USDC on Noble that just got delivered from Ethereum, send it over to Osmosis, trade it for Celestia token, send the Celestia token over to Celestia, and once that's done, await that, and this could take, a few minutes, a few seconds, a few days, whatever it is, depending on these services. If you were like unbonding a token as part of this process, something, right? And it will await that, and once that's done, it goes on to the next line and says, okay, let me get the balance from TIA. How much arrived there? How much do I have in my TIA account, in my Celestia account? Stake that. Delegate that to my validator. And all of this is a small handful of lines of JavaScript that any of millions of developers could understand, and that you can deploy and run in a durable fashion on the Agoric chain, where it can all be upgraded and survive chain updates and all those kinds of things. That is the superpower that Agoric brings to the table, is that ability to to have contract operations that span blocks, that are not just instantaneous trades. Don't get me wrong, instantaneous trades are wonderful. We have succeeded beyond people's expectation, mostly, in terms of being able to deploy that and do financial services on top of that. But the next level of application requires something more than 5 seconds at a time, right? And that's what this brings you. Okay. So, I'll do one last thing there. And so the tokens, the contract's all running on Agoric, but the tokens flow, the asset, the fungible token flows from Ethereum to Noble to Osmosis and finally to Celestia, and the user just signed one transaction, right? They didn't have to do all of this. They just authorized this to happen on their behalf, and now this application is in a position to manage their position on TIA. So, you've got this fundamental ability to do multi-block actions. Oh, and that previous code looks familiar to a lot of people. The difference is it's running on chain, which nobody else can do. Right? So you've got this ability to do these multi-block actions, to react to things and wait for them to happen and then respond to them. And that's not just respond to the events of I sent a message and I got a response back. We have native timers, so you can do periodic events to charge interest, or to do continual purchase, or to rebalance your portfolio every week, or whatever it is that is this cross-chain action you would like the system to proactively do. That can be built. And these are abstractions all written in JavaScript, which is part of this extensible component framework. So adding Wormhole, adding Axelar's GMP, integrating the functions that Squid has added to that, easily and straightforward, and they fit within the same coding paradigm of, wait for this transaction to go over to Filecoin and buy a position so I can store my contract data or store my NFT data. Okay, so we are rolling out the MVP of these APIs, coming in hot and heavy this quarter. So that's showing up starting in March. And you can look at what we're doing and see the updates as they come by going to agoric.com orchestration. And that encompasses, right, fungible assets, the governance tokens, liquid staking tokens, stable tokens, non-fungible assets. It'll encompass in a future version positions, NFTs, PFPs, rental units, all these real-world assets, all those kinds of things. Again, making them programmable across chain, so you can have a portfolio of different positions on different chains, or actions that move and transfer and work across these. It can use these remote services, right? In an app chain world, in a multi-chain world, there are multiple dexes with different yield for different positions, and it changes over time. You want to be able to write programs that span those. These are all services that when it pops up on one chain, no chain is an island anymore, right? You want that service that's over here to do swaps to be accessible from a program over here that has assets that you want to go participate in that pool, right? And Cosmos has been doing that for now literally years. The rest of the world is now in a position to be able to leverage the same kind of stuff. And then there's, of course, the infra. All of these are components that participate in orchestration, that are now part of that multi-chain world, but they need software to tie them together and deliver simple applications and simple use cases to users, rather than complex things that users can, a few of them, degens and people dedicated and traders can make their way through. We want normal users to be able to do normal things using Web3. So, those use cases, right? Stablecoin yield maximizer that will dynamically rebalance your positions in different stablecoin yield functions across different chains, across different ecosystems. Cross-chain vaults, where I can, instead of taking the token from here and moving it across a bridge to my chain in order to operate it, I can lock it up over there and use the proxy here to be able to trade the rights to it without ever moving it off-chain, right? And that works for NFTs in the future as well. Stake manager, where I've got assets that I would like to participate in that purchase, or I want to incrementally do so. Unstake those, and 21 days later, or 14 days later, or whatever it is, pick it up and do this thing, because you know what, I'm going to be on vacation then, or that's 3 weeks later, I'm never going to remember. I just want to do this operation, you make it happen, you figure out what it takes. And then finally, contract swap aggregator, right? In the Cosmos ecosystem, there are multiple dexes. Over various bridges like Axelar and Wormhole and Gravity, you can reach even more dexes in Aave and Ethereum and Solana. Being able to have something that will trade in the best place for those, when your contract needs to make a trade for an asset in order to go stake it or whatever it is, go find the best place, do the trade on chain, and make it happen. Those are all things that we want to be on chain, and until now, you couldn't really do that. And so, not just are all these pieces things that people here are already building or have already built, right? If you've got a chain that's built in Cosmos, that's built in EVM, that's built in Solana, you have assets that could be more programmable, could be more accessible, or could be used in services that are not on your chain. Absolutely, that's a worthwhile thing to go build. Add that JavaScript layer that everyone in Web 2 adds to their underlying system in order to make it easy to orchestrate all the activity across those applications and everything else. So participate in the hackathon. Come build apps. There are multiple. Obviously, we're in the midst of a much larger hackathon, but this is focused on these multi-chain use cases, focused on building projects that span more than one chain, or projects that leverage the value and services on one chain in order to deliver value somewhere else. So come join us in Q2. that'll be rolling out very quickly. And on that orchestration page is where all the details are. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm happy to dig into technical details either now or later on up online. Thank you so much.